Hey there. Today we're talking about specifically what's going on with our 2A cases, and the one that is on the top of everyone's mind is the one that's taken us to SCOTUS. We're calling it the Road to SCOTUS, and we're filming this video specifically to reach out to FFLs and 2A supporters around the state of Washington and anyone else who's following along with the battle that we're fighting that will have effect nationwide if we're successful in what we're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Pete?
Yeah, so for anyone that's not been following, we have a case called State of Washington versus Gators Custom Guns and Wally Wentz. There's a whole lot of background you can check out on all of our other videos, but the bottom line is the state of Washington sought penalties for allegedly selling magazines in violation of our so-called high-capacity magazine ban, which is anything greater than 10 rounds. That case we challenged in the Superior Court in Kelso in Cowlitz County, won that decision very handily from a great constitutional opinion of Judge Basher. Then most recently, about a month ago, earlier this month, the state Supreme Court in a 7-2 decision said no, the large capacity magazine is in fact constitutional because these are not arms. And we've done a great video discussing those elements, but today's video is not about that. Today's video is purely looking forward. It's all about what steps we as a foundation, our legal team are taking to secure your rights before the United States Supreme Court, which has to happen before August 6th, 2025. And if anyone's looking in a calendar, that's less than 2 months away.
Wow, 2 months away. And what do we have to do between now and then to be successful?
We've got a lot of stuff that's got to move on this case. We file what's called the opening brief for what's called a writ of certiorari. It's a petition for review, is the non-Latin version. We're limited to about 40 pages, give or take. And in that, we have to call out specific questions. In other words, did the state Supreme Court err in analyzing a large capacity magazine ban under the Second Amendment? And we believe that the state Supreme Court absolutely erred. And I think that was very clear from the dissenting opinion. And we believe that the questions that we pose are different than other large capacity magazine bans that have happened throughout the nation. Let me kind of restate that. The magazine ban itself, the law that's challenged, is pretty similar to the other several states that have these. But where we are in a legal standpoint, appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court from a state Supreme Court is, as far as I know, the only magazine ban case that is coming from a state Supreme Court. And I think that's a very, very, very different legal and factual posture that makes this a case that is very interesting to the U.S. Supreme Court. Think about it this way. You've got appellate courts who come up and down to you. But you have, even though you're the U.S. Supreme Court, the closest to a peer you have is a state Supreme Court. I mean, those guys are like inching on you, right? They are the final stop in a given state.
Right.
And now you finally, rather than an appellate court, which is like a mid-level manager or even an entry-level manager from a district court, you have your near peer from a state saying, hey, Supreme Court, you kind of effed up the analysis. We're just going to ignore it flatly and do our own thing. And we just kind of don't really care what you've said. Well, now you as a Supreme Court, and I'm thinking specifically Justices Kavanaugh, Alito, and Thomas, absolutely those three. And I could also see Gorsuch and probably, Barrett, Justice Barrett,
Amy Coney Barrett.
Coney Barrett, yeah. Having an intrigue. I could even see some of the liberal justices being intrigued on this question because, again, we told you what to do. You ignored it. And you are the last stop of jurisdiction other than us. And so we got to fix how you do things.
Right. And we can geek out a little bit on the constitutionality, how, the federal government and the state governments fight. But we're not going to get into that today. Though if you're listening to this and you want to know more about that, let us know. We'll talk more about that. But really, probably if you're following along, you'll know about Ocean State Tactical. What makes this case different from what they're trying to do with Ocean State Tactical?
Well, it goes back to everything I just said. This is coming from a state Supreme Court, not a federal appellate court. Again, it's not looking upward from a mid-level manager. It's still upward because it's the U.S. Supreme Court versus the state Supreme Court. But you have a quasi peer that's the last stop, and you're the only one that can modify that. And I know people say, well, that's true about appellate courts, but you still have all the circuits. It's To me, I think they've been looking for a state to rule incorrectly on these firearms issues, and we are the only ones that have that in our possession as of right now, which is why we want to expedite our appeal. No later than August 6th. Hopefully we get it done by end of July. We want that appeal right there in the U.S. Supreme Court's hand, saying you need to review this because the Washington Supreme Court totally misinterpreted what you said. And I think that's the hook that they've been looking for.
Right.
Because to your point, Ocean State, that was granted review and conferenced as late as December of 24. And so it's been a dozen and a half times that it's been kicked and pushed and pushed and pushed. Again, I think the Supreme Court, and this is just Pete Serrano's opinion here, I think the Supreme Court has always known that there would be a state Supreme Court weighing in on these fundamental rights.
Right.
And it's been waiting and waiting and waiting. And I think we are just giving them what they've been like salivating over, saying, no, we don't want the appetizer. We want the main course.
Yeah.
We don't want the dessert. We want the main course. And that's what this is.
I think so. I agree with you. I think they're definitely looking for something different. The fact that they keep on pushing it out, they have something they could rule on and that might work, but they're looking for that, I think, death punch, right? That
Exactly.
the nail in the coffin for this particular issue. So I want to talk about how are we going? You talked about getting this going faster, escalating this, expediting to the court. How do we do that?
Well, I mean, the reality is we are going to take at least 3 of our 5 attorneys and put us pretty darn near full time, reviewing the record, reviewing all the other cases that have gone up that have been granted of the review. I mean, Ocean State's going to have a great roadmap because they at least took it, right?
Right.
They just haven't taken it further. They granted review. So I think there are a lot of roadmaps, and we're going to really kind of piecemeal and compare and contrast. I mean, it's going to be long nights and long days for the 3 of us and possibly all 5 of us, certainly at times all 5 of us putting time in, because there is no case that's more important right now for the people of the United States when it comes to Second Amendment, in my opinion, than this case. And certainly the funders of our organization, they're going to want us to put everything we can into it. So we will be working as much as we have to get this thing teed up perfectly. Probably a week before, we've got to send it to the printers, and sending it to the printers, so end of July, sending it to the printers, we've been quoted, I mean, just to get this thing printed and the 40 copies required to file before the U.S. Supreme Court, that's 40, about $8,000.
Jeez.
And that's just one of the briefs.
That's one of the briefs. So you're talking, we're multiple briefs, $8,000 a pop, plus the overhead of the attorneys. I would say a generous target to be able to get that. We need to raise at least $50,000 by July 4th.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I know we've kind of been here asking a lot, but listen, I wholeheartedly believe that this is the case that the Supreme Court reviews. I absolutely believe it. I don't believe it just accepts review and then reconferences it. It may happen a handful of times, but I believe that this is the case they want. And so I'm going to say, yeah, we're going to ask for $50,000 to get it across the finish line so that we can cover overhead, so that we can cover the printers, so that we can cover any incidentals that have to happen between now and August. But the question I have for anyone watching this, I mean, you stuck with us this long. What are your rights worth? What are they worth to you? We're here sacrificing time with our families. We're sacrificing everything else. We are working desperately to make sure that your rights are protected. And what are you investing in it? If you've got the ability to help fund this case and everything else we're working on, we've got to have you on team now. Because there's going to be a day where we won't be able to survive without you. And we've talked about that. That day is our sun is setting. We absolutely need your help to get this case launched. Once it's filed and they've granted review, at that point, then we've got to, really mount up the troops, and we will literally be spending day and night working on oral arguments because we can't, fumble at the 1 yard line there. We have to make sure this thing is perfect. And we feel the absolute pressure because your fundamental right to bear arms is important to us. So we ask you to team with us. In fact, it's really not a call to action. I don't want to say it's demand to action, but listen, if you want to secure your rights, we've got a path to get there. I've told you why. We've laid it out in other podcasts. I don't know that there's more to say than we've got to raise that money. Rob put it out there, $50,000 by July 4th. Let's celebrate Independence Day. I want to just circle back to one thing. When we filed Brumback v. Ferguson in Yakima, that was our federal corollary of this case that we filed 2 years ago. We tried to file it on July 4th with that purpose and intent of celebrating our independence. Of course, the court's closed, so we got it on July 6th. But here we are 2 years later talking about help us get to the U.S. Supreme Court on the same issue.
Right.
We don't pick these dates by happenstance. We pick them with intent and purpose to send a message to not only those who support us, but those who are against us, to say these fundamental freedoms need protection. But in order for us to help protect you from the front line in the legal department, we got to have your support. And that's our ask, is help us get to $50K on this case within the next 45 days so we can celebrate 4th of July, so that our team can actually take a 5-minute break and we can know what we're doing and where we're going and how we're going to be able to afford. I mentioned one single brief. There are going to be at least 4 in this case. If God willing, review's granted, we have an opening and then a reply and then opening and a reply. So we have to petition for review, and once review's granted, we got to petition more.
Right.
And then we got to get out to DC. I mean, so we're talking $30,000+ in printing costs.
Yeah.
That's not anything else.
It's not going to be cheap. We know that. We've seen this. Now, the timeline can be stretched out, but we can escalate this and make this a little bit faster. We can do what we can from our perspective as well. That $50K, that gets us started. Like, that's that first battle, right? And many hands make light work. If we can get every FFL or as many FFLs as we can to put in what they can afford right now, we know everyone's stretched thin. And because of these laws, you guys are suffering. It's because of these very actions that we're suffering under that you don't have that success or that money rolling into the bank accounts. But sometimes you got to spend money to save your money or make your money or protect your money. And that's what we're saying here. Get us that $50K by July 4th. And now I want it to be mentioned too. Yesterday was Memorial Day. There's no coincidence in this world. Yesterday we celebrated Memorial Day for those that fought for this right. We're going to continue this battle and keep on fighting for this right. We need the money by July 4th so that we ensure that we have money and resources in a timely manner so that we can file in August. And I can guarantee we're going to be right back here asking, but we can spread this out for some more money to continue this battle. It's going to take everything that we've got right now to make sure that we have success and we have those rights for us in the future, that we have. As an FFL, you have your business a year from now, 2 years from now. Or as a 2A supporter, you have those guns and we have the rights, and we continue to protect our freedoms. Because really what it comes down to is that our Second Amendment right is what stands between the government taking over and exerting its tyrannical authority over us. This is the right that maintains that freedom that we have. If we lose it, all is lost. This is the hill to die on. If you've been looking for it, if you've been preparing for it for your entire life and you understand how important the Second Amendment is, this is that time you've been waiting for. There is no one coming to save us after this. If this law does not get challenged and overturned, all of the other laws that are queued up already in our legislature will fall. And they will be mandated on top of us, and we will not have our Second Amendment rights. This is the call to action.
I don't have anything better to say than that. I mean, that's the perfect closure. We are here to stand And I do want to tease one other thing out. This isn't the only firearms related thing we're working on this summer and fall. There's some other phenomenal stuff that we'll tease out at a later date. But right now, we have to stay hyper focused because this has to be U.S. Supreme Court perfection. And we're going to do everything from our end to bring you that product. But we've got to have your support to make sure we can. And as Rob mentioned, the fact that we're bookending Memorial Day and Independence Day is of no coincidence. I wholly believe, and this may turn some off, that God has a hand in this work, and we just happen to be the people that are messengers, whether it's on paper, whether it's at the podium at the court, or whether it's here in the podcast. But we've got to have the support of the people. We are asking you, we are begging you to help us get to the U.S. Supreme Court to protect your rights.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. If you have any questions about how we're doing this or what's going on, or you want to follow up with us, you can get a hold of us. Our website is smfjb.org. Our contact information is there. You can email us at info@smfjb.org. Our phone number is on there as well. I'm not going to put it out there, but if you really want to get a hold of us, you can. If you have any questions or concerns or want to share anything with us, feel free. We're open. We are for you, the people. And thanks again. We look forward to fighting for you as we go forward.